Okay, perfect. Hey guys, welcome back to the Investing Advantage podcast. Today I'm joined by my special guest, Rod Khleif. Now, I've been following Rod for a couple of years, and I think that today's conversation is going to be very valuable and probably in ways that you're not expecting. And so, Rod, maybe you can just start by giving us a little bit of a backstory on who Rod is, how you got into investing, and tell us a little bit about. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Shane. I appreciate you having me on the show, buddy. Let's have some fun today. And so let me go back. Yeah, I'll give you kind of a quick 50,000-foot overview on me and how I got to where I am and some pain and just the whole story. So I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. We came from Holland, and we ended up in Denver, Colorado. Now, I didn't have much. We didn't have much. I wore hand-me-down clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school. Yeah. You know, my mom had to buy expired food because, you know, it was a lot less money. We drank powdered milk. She thought milk was healthy. I think we know better now, but, you know, we struggled. And yes. Now I'm sure that people listening have had it. Some of you may have had it harder than we did, but the thing that I knew was that I wanted more. And so luckily my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she would babysit kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she was an entrepreneur at heart. I got my entrepreneurship from her. In fact, I've built 24 businesses, and I'm sure it's a direct result of her DNA. But anyway, so with her babysitting money, she bought the house across the street from us for $30,000 when I was about 14 years old. Okay. And when I was 17, she told me it had gone up $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? I'm getting into real estate. Mom, I'm not doing college. I'm just going to go right into real estate. And I did. I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18. You know, you can become an agent, or you can become then you become a broker. Well, yeah. Back then you could do it all with education. So I went straight to broker. Now they got smart, and now they want you to have some experience before you become a broker. But, you know, right when I turned 18, I was a broker, and I was going to be rich in real estate. Well, I made about $8,000 my first year, maybe about $10,000 my second year. But my third year, I made well over $100,000. And what's interesting is how that happened. But actually, let me back up and say one thing, just a little bit more backstory. So I've owned over 2,000 houses now that I've rented long term. I've owned multiple apartment complexes, and but anyway, back to my story. So my third year, I 10x'd my income. So how did that happen? Well, how that happened is I met someone that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and how that really is 80 to 90% of your success in anything. You know, 10 to 20% is the real estate stuff you and I talk about on our podcast, Shane. 80 to 90% is mindset. Yes. And so, you know, like I said, fast forward to today, I've owned over a couple thousand houses, and in 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. You know, a little more than my mom's 20,000. And
was that all in single family at the time?
Yeah,
Ron?
It was, and I had apartment complexes as well.
We did. Okay.
But I had 800 houses. I had several apartment complexes, but you know, but there's a punchline. Okay. Yeah. Yes, my net worth went up $17 million. There's a punchline you know, and when that happens, you know, when you have a big year like that, you know, some people can tend to think that they're unstoppable and unbreakable. Yeah. And like, I got a big head. My head could barely fit through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. Well, when that happens, sometimes God or the universe or whatever you believe will give you, you know, a smackdown. Well, my smackdown was 2008. I lost that 17 million and a whole lot more. I ended up losing about $50 million. And, you know, one of the things and it was painful because I thought I was set for life. You know, yeah. Like I said, I had 800 houses, had multiple apartment complexes. I was only at a 30% loan to value as well. And I can explain how it all happened in a little bit, but I want to finish the mindset piece because it's so important. And so, you know, what I talk about at my live events, and I do 3 or 4, I do 4 of those a year now, and they always sell out. And it's kind of funny. My mom was at the one I just had in Denver, and she's in an ALF, and my brothers brought her. She was in her wheelchair, and I'm behind the curtain crying because she's the reason I did, that I'm where I'm at. And so it was really cool. But anyway, And of course, I completely lost my train of thought. So,
You were just talking about the mindset
right,
and
right,
how you were
right,
able to kind of bounce back. And I'm actually
right.
really curious on that because
Yeah, yeah. So what did it take? Well, first of all, what did it take to have 50 million to lose in the first place? And
right.
then of course, what it took to bounce back. And and it was really knowing what I want with clarity
Yes.
and wanted, and knowing why I wanted it.
Hmm.
And you know, if you'll humor me, at my live events and with my coaching students, I take them through a kind of a goal setting process. It's a little
Yes.
different than most people are used to. So if you'll humor me, in about 4 minutes, I could explain it, and I think your listeners would enjoy it. Shane, you want me to do that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I've listened to it and I've
Okay.
done. I remember doing this exact process that you know out in Kelowna because I think you were coaching a lady not long ago on your podcast, and
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
remember
Okay,
hearing
good.
you kind of break it down, and I thought, you know,
Fantastic,
this
fantastic.
is
Well,
tremendous. So
so you've heard it. You've heard it before. It is really powerful.
yeah.
And um, so basically, what you want to do if you're listening, if you can, in fact, if you can take a couple notes, you might be well served to do that. If you're driving, if you can pull over for a second, it'll only take about 3 or 4 minutes, but you want to pick a time when you have a lot of energy. So you
Hmm.
don't do it after a big meal. You make sure you're well hydrated. As I get a drink of water, and um, and you just sit down and write down everything you could possibly want in life. Okay. So all the stuff, you write down all the stuff, you know, stuff is great. I'm about to buy a boat. I'm about to buy some jet skis. We all love stuff. So write down what you want, you know, the houses, the cars, and don't limit yourself. You know, if you know, take the lid off your brain. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it. So if you want a private jet, write it down, a yacht. That happens to be one of my things now. I want to rent or buy a yacht and go around the Mediterranean, go around Italy and Greece and Croatia and Spain and all that. And so whatever it is, don't limit yourself, because truly there's nothing you can't do, be, or have. So write everything down you can think of. And here's why this is so important. Now, most of you, if you're listening to Shane, probably already do your goals, but this process we're going to go through is a little bit different and more involved, and I think more powerful than a typical goal setting or New Year's resolution kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So make sure everything's measurable as well. So make sure, you know, if you're going to lose some weight, that you don't say I'm going to lose some weight, and you say I'm going to lose 10 pounds by X date and feel great about it. But write down all the stuff. Write down how much money you want in the bank, say in 3 years, and how much money you want in 10 years. Write down how much, you know, cash flow you want from your real estate investments, let's say again in 3 years, and how much you want in 10 years. Um, but what this process does is it triggers something called your reticular activating system. And what that is it's a filter in your brain that subconsciously automatically filters out what it thinks is most important for you to focus on. And the greatest example of this filtration system that's subconscious is when you first buy a car. You never really notice them, and when you buy it, you see them everywhere. And that's your brain, because it knows that that it's important to you. Same thing applies to your goals. If you just a simple act of writing them down, and even writing them regularly and revisiting them, so you have more clarity around them, it triggers this reticular activating system. So when your brain sees things, even subconsciously, that might aid you on your path to those goals, it's gonna hone you in on those things. It's very, very powerful. And you know, if you're listening and you're analytical, don't poo-poo this, okay? Because this is how I got to have 50 million to lose, and this is how I recovered from having 50 million, and to the success that I enjoy today. And so this stuff really does work. So once you have written down your goals, write down also what you want to do this lifetime. You know, in your lifetime. I'm talking, by the way, these goals should be lifetime. It's not just for a year. I want everything you can think of. So write down what you want to do. Maybe you want to climb a mountain, or I've got a friend that's climbing every mountain in the world that's big. Maybe you want to, I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane a few months ago, which I'll never do again, but maybe you want to do that. Write a book, whatever it is, write it down. Also, write down what you want to learn in this lifetime. See me, I'm going to learn how to play the drums. I'm going to learn how to fly a helicopter, I believe, at some point. You know, what do you want to learn? A foreign language, whatever it is, write it down. Also, write down who you want to help.
Hmm.
Okay. Like I bought my parents a house, my mom's still alive, but my dad's gone. But when he was here, I bought him a house on a canal here in Florida, bought him a car, took him on cruises. Who do you want to do something for? So write that down. All right. And if you're analytical, as you're writing this stuff down, don't stop and analyze it. Just write it down. You can scratch it out later if you want, but just keep the pen going. Don't sit and stop and think, and just keep going. Keep that energy high. Make sure you're breathing. Just write down everything you can think of. All right. Then once you can't think of another thing, they're really not goals until they're truly measurable. And so what I want you to do is put a time limit on each goal. Put a 1, a 3, a 5, even a 10 or a 20. Remembering that as human beings, we will overestimate what we can do in, say, a year and massively underestimate what we can do in, 5, 10, 20 years. For example, when I was 18, we lived in Denver, and I knew I wanted to live on the beach. Or on the water at the least. But I loved the beach. I love the palm trees. And so I made a commitment to myself when I was 18 that I was ultimately going to do that. I ended up building this 10,000 square foot, $8 million house right on the beach. I had the beach on one side. I had my boat houses on the backside, magnificent home, but it was unthinkable when I was 18. So the point in that is not to brag. It's to encourage you to not limit yourself and go big or go home. So there's that. Now, once you've got a number on each goal, 1, 3, 5, 10, 20, I want you to pick your number one goal. I mean, that goal that when you get it, you're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And put that on a separate sheet of paper. Then I want you to leave some room in between these, but I want you to write down your top 3 one-year goals on a separate sheet of paper and leave room in between them. So you've got your number one goal and your top 3 one-year goals. At this point, you're way ahead of everybody else out there. Most people, again, do New Year's resolution. Most people spend more time planning a birthday party or Christmas than they do designing their lives. And that's what you're doing here. You're designing your life. So you've got your 4 goals on a separate sheet of paper. The goals are very important. They will push you and pull you and propel you and motivate you. But the real fuel is knowing why those goals are an absolute must. And you asked me, how I recovered from losing $50 million. It was refocusing. Focus is so powerful. Focus is power. Is refocusing on what I wanted and why I wanted it. So I want you to write a paragraph for each goal, why it's an absolute must for you to achieve it. Not a should, a must. Okay. Like it's done. It must happen. So use emotionally charged words like amazing and magnificent and incredible, because words are so powerful. They will move you. Okay. So use them, so that I can show my wife what success looks like. I can show my husband what success looks like. So I can show my kids what it means to be successful. So we can have freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want, whatever it is for you, and use powerful words because they're so incredibly effective at moving you. So write down a positive reasons why for each one of your goals, why it's an absolute must for you to achieve it. Because we achieve our musts. Okay. We don't achieve our shoulds. We achieve our musts. Very important. Now, then take it one little step further. Put some pain in there if you don't achieve the goals. And I mean, make it painful. So I don't feel like a failure. So I don't live a life of regret. So I don't fail my children. So I don't fail my spouse. I mean, make it hurt. Okay. Because as human beings, we will do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. And this is the fuel, guys. This is the fuel that'll get you to get up early, stay up late, work on a weekend to build these dreams that you deserve for you and your family. So use it. So put some pain in there. So I don't live a life of regret. There was a nurse in Australia, a hospice nurse that counseled hospice patients at the end of their lives. And she asked them if they had any regrets. And she even wrote a book about it. Her name was Bronnie Ware, and the book is The 5 Regrets of Dying. And you know what the number one regret was, Shane? It was not living my life, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I was capable of. Screw that. Okay. We no regrets, my friends. We find that fuel so that you take massive action, so you don't end up at the end of your life wishing, that you did something. So, then once you've done the positive and negative reasons why, there's one more piece. And that is, you want to utilize the power of visualization to manifest what you want in life. And I'll give you some examples of this. One great example, publicly known example, is Jim Carrey, the actor. When he was flat broke, he wrote himself a check And for those of you millennials that don't know what that is, it's this piece of paper he used to use for paying for things. But he wrote himself a check for $10 million, and he put on it for services rendered with a little smiley face. And that's how much money he made for his first big movie, Dumb and Dumber. And so guys, and what he did when he's flat broke, he'd take that check up to the Hollywood sign. He'd sit up there, look at the view, visualize cashing that check. Guys, Olympic athletes have been now taught to always visualize the race before they do it. The Russians started it. Everyone does it now because it's been proven to enhance performance. I'll give you some of my own examples. Back when I was 18 and I got my real estate broker's license, you know, I figured I had to have a 4-door car because I was going to be showing people houses and selling houses. So I bought this bone ugly Ford Granada with bench seats. It was gray. It was the ugliest car I've ever seen. But you know, I figured that's what I had to have. Well, I worked with a guy that had a couple of Corvettes, and he was the father of my girlfriend at the time. And he let me drive one of them. And that's a key piece, that experiential piece. Because I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I've got to have this. So if there's something that you want, go experience it. If there's a house you want, go to an open house of a house like it. If there's a car you want, go test drive it. I just did this myself last week at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. I went there because I want to have a yacht at some point or rent a yacht. And like I said, go around the Mediterranean and see everything. And so I went in yachts and sat in on the beds and sat in the desks and visualized them underway. And because this stuff works, guys. Now I know some of you analytical ones are going, oh boy, this is spoofy. I'm telling you at your peril, because this is the real meat and potatoes. It's not the real estate syndication techniques. It's actually taking freaking action with what you learn. And when you get around these things that you want, trust me, this stuff works. So anyway, I got a picture back with the Corvette example. I got a picture of a Corvette out of a magazine. This was before you could spell internet. It hadn't even been thought of yet. And I put that on the visor of my bone ugly 4-door Granada. So every time I got it was right there in my face. Within a year or two, I had a beautiful Corvette. And I'll give you a couple more examples. Let me pre-frame this by saying this is not me bragging, because these things don't even interest me anymore. But this was back when the TV show Magnum PI was out.
Yes.
American show with the actor's name was Tom Selleck. He was a detective, and he drove this awesome Ferrari 308 and red. And I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So I got a picture of that actual car, put on the visor of my Corvette. Then a couple of years I had a Maserati to look just like it. Last example. I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini. When I was growing up, I had pictures of the Lamborghini Countach posters in my bedrooms, you know, covering my walls. And what's crazy is when my son was 9 years old, he collected models of exotic cars. He had about 30 of them. And he had a model, which is actually in one of the other buildings here in my compound. He had a model of the exact same color and style Lamborghini that I ended up getting. So guys, pictures work. In fact, let me share one thing. In the back, this is a planner. Okay, you guys, if you're on iTunes, you can't see this, but in the back of this planner, I use this. It's a paper planner. Yes, I'm a dinosaur. I use paper planner. But in the back of this thing, I've got pictures that have been in here for 20 years. First pictures are my gratitude pictures. Guys, everything starts from a foundation of gratitude. So these are the pictures of my kids when they were very young. Okay, so start with gratitude. But then I've got pictures of things that I wanted, like this picture at the top here. Looks just like the house I built on the beach, okay? I had glass just like this looking out over the bay. And what's crazy, now I lost that place, you know, through a divorce and the crash. But down here at the bottom, these pictures look just like the compound that I have now. In fact, you see these railings here. You can see behind me, that's my backyard. You can see they're the same railings. I mean, it's crazy. And I live in this compound now. It's 6 buildings. I've got a giant main house. I've got guest house on the water. I've got a media center with a video studio and a theater room. I've got, a beautiful exercise facility. I mean, on and on and on. Yeah. And because God's got a sense of humor, I can see my old house across the bay. It's right out my back. It's right to the left of behind me here where you can see. Yes. But anyway, pictures work. And I mean, I've got other pictures in here, you know, stuff that I thought was important at the time.
Let me ask you this, Rod, because I recall hearing where you had built the dream house that you had wanted, the one that you're just, I think, alluding to where you'd lost it. And one of the things I struggled with until just recently was setting goals that I thought sounded good and that
You
I thought
thought
I
sounded
wanted.
good, or did you feel like they were unrealistic? Just want to make sure.
No, I don't think that they were unrealistic. I think what it was is I felt like they were goals that I should achieve or I wanted to achieve, but it wasn't until, in the last 18 months that I had just tremendous clarity on what it is that I really wanted. And it's hard for me to articulate that to people in
Well,
terms of.
let me add something here.
Sure.
And that is your goals will evolve. Okay.
Yes.
Let me just finish.
Yeah.
Like in this back of this book, I've got pictures of watches. I've got a few $100,000 worth of watches, which I thought was important. I got the Lamborghini before I ever got it, Rolls Royce before I ever got it. Pictures work. So just to end that conversation, use them. If you look on the walls now, you'll see pictures of the yachts and things that I think are important that and charitable things that I'm doing.
Yes.
But as you evolve, as you self-actualize, your wants and desires change.
Yes.
They evolve as you do. So that's probably what you're going through right now, Shane, is I really could care less about the cars anymore. I mean, yeah, I've got nice cars, but that's not motivating me anymore. I've got vision boards behind me here. Let me show you something. I've got vision boards behind me here. Like there's my gratitude board, but let me show you. Like here's one. I want to build schools in third world countries. So I've got one for that now.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So again, as we evolve, as we grow, so do our goals. Forgive me if you can hear me with the being away from the mic here. But as we evolve, so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. And one of the other things that I think would be really valuable is how you manage your emotions, right? So when you were going through that tough time of losing $50 million, like I can't imagine that. I know, if a deal falls apart or, you have tough days. Was it those vision boards that pulled you forward? Was it, what was it?
It was a few things. Okay. Yeah. One of the things was I got exposed to Tony Robbins. Okay. And I've ended up following him around the planet for 20 years because let me give him a shout out. If you have an opportunity to see him, just do it. Okay. While he's still speaking, amazing. He's that good. Yes. So I was in that environment, thank God, because, really what you focus on is what you get. Yeah. So, luckily I had that drilled into my head and so, certainly I was focusing on the pain for a while. I mean, listen, I a couple months, so who knows? I don't even remember how long it was, but not that long. And then it was like, you know what? I'm back to focusing on what I want and why I want it. It's so easy in this society to focus on the negative. I mean, that's why I don't watch the news anymore. You got to stand guard at the door to your mind because there's so much negative crap out there. In fact, as human beings, we get reinforced for the negative. If you go up to someone and they say, "Hey, how you doing?" and you say, "Oh man, I am freaking fantastic. Life is amazing," they'll like back up and they'll be like, "Oh shit, who's?" But if you go like, "Oh God, I feel terrible. My back's killing me," they're like, "Oh brother, come here." So we get reinforced for the negative. But the key is to focus on the positive, focus on what you want. Like if you want to get out of debt, don't think about debt, think about money. They asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war and she said, "No, I'm pro-peace." So focus is power. And so, luckily I got that. In fact, back here on the wall behind my green screen, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see in the middle of that sign, it says, "I am focus." Okay. Wow. So I have yelled that to myself thousands of times because I am statements are very powerful. Yes. Anything you put the words "I am" in front of is an identity statement. There's no greater force in the human psyche than the need to remain consistent with how we identify ourselves. Yeah. So, I use affirmations. At my live events, people come up to my kids and are like, "Does he really do that shit? Does he really yell that stuff as loud as he can?" Yes, he does. I have those signs in my exercise room. I am focus. I'm determination. I got them on my wall here. I'm health and energy. I am success. I'm a business genius. Again, it's not ego. It's just what I'm aspiring to become. And the power of that, when you yell it really loud, it gets into the fiber of your being. It gets into your psyche. It's incredibly powerful. If you're stressed or fearful, stress really is the achiever's word for fear. If you're stressed or fearful, maybe yell out, "I am courage." And I've done that. I can thousands of times. I'm not exaggerating. I'm running down the street. Luckily now I've got an exercise room and nobody has to suffer through hearing me, but I didn't give a shit before. You know, they're the people that care are the ones that aren't going to achieve much anyway. So guys, and again, some of you analytical ones are going, oh, good Lord. But I'm telling you, the stuff works. It absolutely works. You know, your brain is so powerful, so incredibly powerful. There truly is nothing you can't do. There are people that aren't half as smart as some of the people listening to your show, Shane, that have accomplished amazing things because of their mindset, their sheer will, you know, and pushing through fear. And that's why you've got to know exactly what you want and why you want it, because you've got to push through fear. So many of us have limiting belief systems from childhood experiences that have no basis in fact. They just, you know, we had some emotional event that we gave energy to, and so we believe they're real, like, well, I'm not good enough. That was mine. But there's a reason the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are BS, but we believe they're factual. So, you know, to push through that crap, you've got to know exactly what it is you want, focus on it, and focus on why you want it. And that's how you push through that fear, those limiting beliefs, or get uncomfortable. That's even more dangerous when you're comfortable. Comfort zone's a warm place, but not a damn thing grows there. Okay. So you got to get, the life you want is on the other side of a little discomfort, you know? So.
Well, I mean, there's so many things there, and I don't know where to even begin in terms of unpacking. One of the, and I'll tell you why, because I've got one friend, and I know he listens to this show, and so this is going to be just so key for him.
Good.
He has the knowledge and understanding of how to invest in commercial real estate,
but he hasn't taken action.
When it comes down to it, he has yet to take action. And I have it written down here. I'm like, what would you tell a friend like that? I think you've probably already answered it, but maybe you can kind of.
Well, no, listen, you first of all, you got to want it. Okay. You really have to want it. Yeah. And so many analytical people get caught up in analysis paralysis, and it's really, it's frankly, it's an escape hatch. It really is. It's just like, you know, people telling themselves stories. I'll do it tomorrow. You know, I'll be a great parent tomorrow, or I'm just too young, I'm too old, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough experience, whatever. They're stories. And what those are circuit breakers. So we don't get disgusted with ourselves. So it's just so important to recognize if you're telling yourself a story, number one, and really hone in on why you want it and what you want, because that's, you know, that's the fuel. And so what I would tell your friend is take freaking action. Okay. If you're fearful, when you take action, it mitigates the fear. When you don't take action, the fear expands. It's counterintuitive, but when you take action, it mitigates the fear. When you don't take action, your courage diminishes. When you take action, your courage actually increases. So again, it's counterintuitive, but you know, it's that old adage that Dr. Martin Luther King said, you know, you take that first step, the next step will be revealed. You can drive all the way across the United States at night with just your headlights on, seeing 50 feet in front of you, and you'll make it across. The same thing applies to your goals.
Right.
Okay. But you got to take that first step. I see it in real estate all the time. You know, that first deal is always the hardest. It takes the longest. It's the most stressful, the most fear involved. And after you're done, you're like, holy shit, is that all there is? And then they're like dominoes, one right after another. I've got students, they kill themselves to get that first one, and now they've got thousands of doors. It's like, you know, they realize that it really is, it was just all between their ears.
Let me ask you this bit, because it was another thought I had, and that is, can you tell the characteristics of your students that are going to pull the trigger and actually follow through? Is it learned? I know that it's learned, but it is definitely
learned. It is definitely learned. I was an introvert. I was embarrassed to raise my hand in class in school, and now I speak in front of thousands of people a year. You know, and I love it. And just it's almost unthinkable that I do it, honestly, when I look back at how I used to be. But I learned, and you know, many people are so afraid of rejection.
Yes.
Not realizing that people really don't care that much about you. They're interested in themselves. And so one of the things, if you're one of those people, if you're an introvert or you just don't like, you know, meeting new people, it's scary for you. You just have to have 5 seconds of courage. And here's how I did it. I had a menu of questions that I could ask. And I used to carry it in my back pocket so I wouldn't forget. And I would just go up and say, hi, hold my hand out and I'd say, hi, I'm Rod. I don't think we've met. And then I'd ask questions. And whenever you're in a communication with someone, if you're asking questions and they're talking about themselves, it's the greatest conversation they ever had. Because who do they want to talk about themselves? You know, How to Win Friends, Influence People, Dale Carnegie. That's the basic tenet of that. But the point is, that's how I got past it. And then I also recognized that, my limiting belief was that I wasn't good enough. In fact, my limiting question was, how can I show them I'm good enough? Which presupposed obviously that I wasn't.
Right.
And so I finally came, if you're listening and you have a limiting belief like that, I promise you it's from when you were young. Pull it out in the freaking daylight, look at it with your adult rational mind. And when I did that, I was like, I'm a gift from God. I have a beautiful heart. I care about other people. It's bullshit. If they don't like me, that's their BS. It has nothing to do with me. And when I consciously, rationally, those are the operative words, consciously and rationally realize that, it just diminished those fears and those limiting beliefs. Take some time, but guys, when that crap pops up, pull it out in the daylight every time. Stop, consciously think about it, and it will diminish and diminish and diminish until it's finally gone. But you can't overlook it. You can't let it pass by. You have to pull it out. Hopefully I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that absolutely helps and gives clarity to that question. I'm also interested. What are the things that you do today? Because I suspect you've expanded your level of uncomfort, right? Like,
I showed you my vision boards. Showed you my vision boards. So what I do a lot of mornings when I have time, but it doesn't take that long. I'm not gonna say I do it every morning. I wish I did, because it's so powerful. Is I'll just sit for a few minutes and I'll do gratitude for the things that I have in my life. My beautiful wife, my incredible kids, my assets, my employees, my friends, my coaching students, and I'll just do gratitude. But then what I'll do is I'll do gratitude. Sometimes I'll have to look at the vision board so I have real clarity on what I want, but I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. And I'll even get emotional sometimes over things I don't even have yet, but the gratitude's the key piece, because it's foundational. That's why I've got a gratitude board, and I've got the first pictures in my planner are gratitude pictures. I've been in there 20 years. And so, I would encourage you to, those of you listening, to embrace gratitude first, but because you can't be fearful and grateful at the same time. You can't be angry and grateful at the same time. It's just such a powerful emotion. And so, it's foundational, but that's my morning routine. And typically I'll declare it's going to be a great day, and it is. Or if I'm in a situation, I'll pre-frame it. Like we just flew in last night and my wife and I, we normally fly first class, and this is not ego. It's just when you travel as much as we do, I work 12-hour Sundays. So these little things I do to make my life better, I do. And for her as well. But so we couldn't go in first class. We're only 4 seats up there. So we're in the premium economy, I guess. But there were 3 seats. And so she'll typically take the window and I'll take the aisle, and we pray no one gets the middle seat. Well, we got this guy that got the middle seat, and he had a hunting outfit on. He was real big and smelled a little bit. And he sat down and I'm real wide. And at first, we're like rubbing elbows, and we're both uncomfortable trying to pull away when that happens. It's just awkward and uncomfortable. And finally I'm like, screw it. And I started a conversation with him, and he was an awesome guy. We had a ton of stuff in common. And so I just, I just decided to turn what I perceived as a negative into a positive. I'll give you another great example. One time, because I'm so wide, I always go to events early so I can sit on the aisle, because I move the seats. Otherwise I'm miserable. Well, I was late for an event, and it's pretty much the same story. And there were 2 seats left in the middle, and I was miserable anyway. But then this giant woman starts coming down the aisle, and she's going to be sitting next to me. And I'm like, oh, good God. But then I just said, I turned it around and I held my arms out. I like towards the seat. I'm like, come here, sweetheart, sit down. And we had the best freaking time, awesome. So I don't think I answered your question, but.
No, that's okay. You know what? Sometimes it's just fun to have those kind of stories. So no, it's great. Right. I know you've got an event coming up in LA, and I wouldn't mind just kind of hearing a little bit about that. And I know
Sure.
your events are different because you are the primary speaker. It's
Yes.
not a
It's
pitch
me for
fest.
me for 3 days. I don't
That's
bring
right.
in outside speakers like everybody else to sell you a bunch of stuff. It's just me. Um, but they're about multifamily real estate
Yeah.
investing. I have a podcast as well. We're about to hit
Yes.
7 million downloads. And the reason for that success and the reason that my events always sell out is because I don't just talk about the real estate. I talk about the
Mhm.
mindset
Yeah.
because most people, 90%, typically, this is the average, 90% of the people that go to an event like that don't do a damn thing with it.
Yeah.
Out of fear or limiting beliefs. Not on my watch. So, I mean, we spend time on pushing through the fear, on discovering really who you are, your identity, embracing that, visualizing it so it pulls you into it. So
Yeah.
that, what's the word? Yeah, a lot. The word's
Well,
escaping me, but
basically, you're following through. You're embracing the fact that it's going to be challenging, right? When you go in with
sure.
with improper expectations,
Sure, we
then
do a piece on recovering from setbacks,
yeah,
on pushing through failure. I show
that's right.
videos of people, I show a video of a woman that was in a race and she fell down. Everybody ran ahead of her and she gets up and she wins the damn thing because she didn't give up,
Yeah.
and so it's about not giving up. I've built 24 businesses. Several have been worth tens of millions of dollars. Most have been spectacular flaming seminars. Okay. I call them seminars because they're a
Yeah.
learning experience and they're only a failure if you don't get back up or you don't get the lesson. But,
Yes.
but it's really all mindset. And that's why I spend a lot of time on that at my events. It's rodinlosangeles.com. And,
Yes.
and I'd love to see you there if you're interested in multifamily. Also, I got a free gift for your listeners on my
Perfect.
website, rodkhleif.com. I used to give away copies of my book. I have this 220-page book, and it's awesome.
And it's a great book. I've
Thank
read
you,
it.
thank you,
It's
thank you,
tremendous.
thank you. Well, my team finally, after about 20,000 copies, said, "Hey, stupid, we should put it on Amazon, make some money." So I put it on Amazon, but now I put in its place this. It's about a 70-page workbook, toolbook for multifamily. It's got every possible question that you should ask yourself if you're evaluating multifamily. If you're not into multifamily, then don't bother with it. But if you are interested in buying apartments, it's free. It's on my website. The price is right. Just go get it. It's not fluffy thing. It's got every possible question you could ever need, analysis, and it's free. So go to rodkhleif.com and get it. Yeah, I promise you'll be glad you did. And
so that's like we've got the mindset and the technical, if you will, right? In terms of,
I do that at my events. Sure. It's
Yeah.
drinking through a fire hose. Every
Yeah.
part of the acquisition, finding deals, evaluating deals, financing deals, getting the money for your deals, managing your deals, building your team, raising equity. I have a panel on Saturday night at every event. I do it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Every Saturday night, I have somewhere between $1.5 and $3 billion on stage represented by the panelists. And it's a Q&A. Ask any question you want. We get a wet bar or cash bar in there. It gets a little stupid by about 9 p.m. But we have a lot of fun and we go late and they're a lot of fun. I've got a Facebook community, a multifamily Facebook community. It's the largest group really in the world for multifamily. It's over 30,000 people in it. So if you guys are interested in this business, go to multifamilycommunity.com and you answer a couple of questions. We'll let you in. There's no promotional out in there. It's a great educational platform. But if you put in the words boot camp or multifamily boot camp, you'll see what hundreds of people have said about the event. So you don't have to hear it from me.
Well, and I think it's important too that because we didn't really touch on this, but you're an active investor, right? You're not just teaching
I bought
this.
1,000 doors. I bought 1,000 doors this year.
Yeah. So I think it's that's one of the key things that I look for when I'm learning from someone, not just what worked 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because markets change.
Sure.
And
we are in irrational exuberance right now, buddy. And guys, those of you listening, and there are a lot of mistakes being made right now. I recognize it. It's 2006 all over again, 2007. So just be careful.
Yeah.
Can you find deals? Yes. We probably got LOIs out on 2,000 or 3,000 doors right now. And we're close on about 1,000. It's going to be feast or famine. It's going to be feast here pretty soon again. Nice. But we've kissed a lot of frogs to find those.
That's right.
We've evaluated about 200 to find one that makes sense. Yep. So, just be careful, guys. If you're investing passively or actively, Just make sure you know the operator and you've got some basic understanding of the asset class. If I know you do other asset classes, Shane, but whatever it is, get to know it a little bit. Don't give your money to somebody unless you've got at least some basic understanding of the
100%.
business, right? Would you agree, Shane?
Oh, well, I mean, that's one of the primary reasons I created my podcast was
Love
to,
it.
at a bare minimum, educate investors, whether
Right.
they, because I know most of my listeners were or are passive investors, right? They put their money into deals.
Right.
And my challenge with that is when you're putting money into a deal that you don't fully understand, it's very easy for the promoter to financially engineer the
Oh
numbers,
yeah.
right?
The
Small little
pro
tweaks
forma.
here and there can make
Right.
a 4% return look like an 8% return,
Right.
and no risk. And then what happens? Well, same thing here in 08. I saw companies go under that had raised $200 million. And my parents, both teachers, they lost $100,000 in
No
a bad
kidding. Wow.
investment. And
Sorry to hear that.
this is,
That's a lot
but
of money for a teacher. Wow.
it is. I mean,
Yeah.
they remortgaged their house
Oh boy.
to invest, which this is back when I was 19.
Wow.
But that set me on my journey to,
Sure. Sure.
help and educate.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we are very on our, same as you, I'm sure we're very conservative. Like I was just looking at assets yesterday. We were in Dallas and Shreveport, and we've got assets both places. And the one in Dallas, we're at 65% loan to value. I mean, we bought it that way and we still have good returns. The one in Shreveport, I would not normally do that market, but it was, the seller paid 20 million 10 years ago. We paid 16 and a half 5 months ago. And I mean, it's a screaming deal. But again, in this hot market, it's truly both eyes wide open, because like you said, an operator can make a deal look like it's great.
Yes.
And it's going to come out in the wash when things slow down.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to be very respectful of your time, Rod.
Thanks, buddy. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate you having me on, and let's definitely stay in touch, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rod.
Take care. All right. Stop recording. Boom. And I will send this to you.
Thank you.
And you might know, my pleasure, buddy. I appreciate you having me on.